So I would say that I'm not really one for routine or how some people have like a really strict, rigid morning routine. And I say that, but then as I sit here and pack a bowl and work through my artist way, drink coffee, light a candle, kind of just enjoy the morning, that really is my morning routine. And I heard a really great interview once with Katie Byron. I always mess up her name, but she's the author of Loving What Is. And when she was asked, what does she do for her morning routine? She basically said that she wakes up, takes a shower, and brushes her teeth. And I think that in our spiritual world and our influences by other teachers, gurus, guidance, we have, I have in a way put certain people on a pedestal and then been very rigid with whatever they do is the right thing to do. And as you work through your process of healing and finding different modalities that you think are helping you along the way, you might find, I think I'm like 17 years into working on myself, and like it began with different things like church and counseling and therapy and moved into a lot of other modalities. And after years of doing those things, okay, I wake up every morning and I do my, breath work, meditation, whatever these things are that we're kind of told to do, and you still find yourself having major life challenges, you almost start to question, like, what is right? Am I even doing this right? So I think at this point in my process, it's important to acknowledge that it's very different. Often, like times, it's very different from other people's. And there's really no reason or need for me to judge it anymore. I'm not missing out, or I'm not enlightened because of the way that I do my morning. In fact, I think that the rigidity and the it's not even necessarily, it's all polarity and duality, because it's not about like if you have yourself rooted in, I can get this feeling if I do these things. That's absolutely normal for me. Like I will do that because I think that like cannabis has always been it's always really been a medicine. I know that that's kind of coming out. Well, not kind of coming out, but I think that if I were to say that I've only used it recreationally, that wouldn't really be true. It has an impact on me of enhancing my ability to be present. And we all have a bit of like a looping critic in our mind, and it could really say that the priorities that maybe society and the pressures that we feel are not actually the priorities that I need as a being in this moment. And so, well, I understand that sometimes it is looked at as a drug, and it is like some people, I even understand, I'm probably going to butcher this, but like have a psychosis of like an experience of like almost probably like a hyper mental stimulation. But the way that I kind of see that too is like, that's always there. If you're noticing it only when you smoke, well, there's something to that it's kind of always there. It's technically like the work you should be doing. So I think that what's interesting in our routines and like our spiritual practices is that sometimes you don't really know what it is. And I think that throughout the vast teachings like human design, gene keys, artist's way, like even like Gabar Morte, or I'm saying his name wrong, the compassionate learning, fourth way, Course in Miracles, a lot of yoga philosophy, all of those things are going to give you guidelines, and they're going to help you like navigate life with a little bit more and different tools than we're perhaps given just like right off the bat from our parents and our education system. Our education system never was like, hey, you have like this inner world that's probably like very staticky, and like here's how you would calm it down. But it's more not that. It's like deny your inner world, and like definitely we don't have to figure out how to manage it. So I feel like all of these options give you tools, but in an odd way, we don't really know what to do with all the tools. So it's not a matter of, you've got to do every single one of them all the time. Your spiritual practice is going to be like your breath work and meditation. I don't know who I was talking to the other day. Yes, I was actually, I remember, but it was a matter of saying, like, a lot of times we get in this place where I'm doing all the work and I'm self-healing and I'm self-helping, but I'm still really hurting. It's because whatever you're hurting about, that's your spiritual practice. If you're moving, you're switching jobs, you're breaking up with somebody, you're having a health issue, you are having a housing issue in other ways, that's your spiritual practice. It's not necessarily that you need to add all of your other things to it. It's how can, what things do you have in your tool belt that will help you get through this? And in some ways, a spiritual practice is not perfect. So if you're going through a breakup and you're going through like a crisis and you find yourself like wild, this is just how I explain things, fucking a stranger, doing alcohol, having just like these more manic episodes where you're trying to find yourself and put your pieces back together. This is an assumption that you've already been doing some spiritual work. So like maybe you're not actually like a heavy drinker or addict, or maybe you do fuck strangers normally, but like you notice now you're doing it a little bit more neurotically, which we all know, we don't all know what that is. But like if you're listening to me, you know what I'm talking about. Like there's moments where you're trying so hard to anchor yourself in something that your behavior becomes more like, I'm taking this is who I am, this is fine. Like I already have so much shame about other things, I'm gonna do this thing, and then later you just add that shit to your shame. But when you're doing it in a spiritual practice way of saying, okay, I know I have these tools of breath work, meditation, whatever they may be, but you don't make them rigid, and you make them something that's like, okay, is this gonna offer me relief? I would step out on a limb to say possibly that is the most enlightened that we could become, is when we continue to get tumbled over by life, like what can we turn to, and not what can we turn to in such a rigid manner of like grasping and help fix me and these sort of things, but almost in another reverent way of, I know that you help me get back to me. And so really, if your whole spiritual practice is like moving or breaking up with somebody or having a financial crisis, and you're doing things that somebody else told you to do to get back to you, then you're missing the point. It's whatever gets you back to you. If it's breath work, taking walks, really diving into your sexuality, cooking, allowing something to speak with you that helps you understand yourself even more, getting a teacher, whatever it might be, that might be your spiritual practice. And it doesn't have to be all of them at once, and it doesn't have to be really any of the other ones that everybody understands, just as long as you understand yourself. So if you find yourself like fucking a stranger, and maybe for me once in the past, it had been kind of like a numb, or I wasn't really feeling lovable, and this person was giving me time and attention, so I was really confusing that for love, or just really kind of taking anything I can get, or somewhere else in that realm. Versus now, if I choose to have an experience with a new person that's very electric like that, first of all, it has to be electric like that. I have to be getting some kind of, excuse me, not stimulation, but an invitation to the present with somebody else who's willing to be super vulnerable. Sex is super vulnerable. And so a lot of times when we are in these places of like, our spiritual practice is kind of like in survival. Like we've got a lot going on. We really have to keep ourselves together and like da-da-da-da-da. And your presence is different in that manner than when you find yourself being like, I need to be comfortable being vulnerable with somebody, and this person basically like offering sex in this manner, in this vulnerable, I see you present manner, offers a completely different healing experience, I would say, as well as a spiritual experience. Because when you have a moment where two people are connecting and it becomes just like this one moment of either pleasure or connection or stimulation or an opportunity to be vulnerable and get to know each other, that shit is a spiritual practice. Because knowing that it's not like you're above all of your social bullshit, but like your social bullshit is just social bullshit. Like what you were actually given as a human, your inner world, your ability to have your body create pleasure in your inner world, those things sort of become a little bit more clear. And we're not really living under so many universal laws. Like the universal laws tell us that the social stuff is important. Obviously, gravity, air, breathing, those are all part of like a universal law. But even in the place where we're trying to find a spiritual neutral ground, we are like taking on more laws. And I think that it's more of like releasing laws. So, we go into a spiritual practice and maybe a guru tells us we have to add 87 things to our day, including a rigorous diet. Now you're under more laws. You feel as if you're not really reaching the goal because you have all these things to do, and if you don't meet them all, the shame and the guilt is part of your my shit. And so like I can't have any more things to do and then not do them and then feel bad about them. So when you have sex and you have an orgasm, you kind of become a little bit more aware of the experience of having less laws and being like, oh shit, oh my God, I'm like this divine body and spirit and soul, and love is more important, or connection's most important. You at least get a glimpse of what it's like to have these less laws pressing down on you. So I think it's important to say that your spiritual practice is whatever you're going through, because that's already a lot of laws as it is. But it's maybe the spiritual practices of doing the routines and things like that are to remind yourself to release yourself of these laws. And excuse me. And as you have a spiritual practice and somebody gives you too many laws, kind of just like regurgitating what I just said. So the spiritual teacher gives you too many laws, and now you're like, holy shit, I don't feel any better to have to do all these things. Having like an experience like sex, or having your own experience of being like, what does it feel like for me to witness that I'm just a being that's really kind of only under one law? Or if I could understand something and release the disbelief of, or the limiting beliefs of something, then I can move on, knowing that like anytime I pick up arbitrary laws, they're not there for me to be free. They're literally tacking on more like a prisoner. Like now they're my burdens. Where did I go recently? I was under some learning experience recently. Oh, the yoga philosophy. And it was like, I didn't necessarily get any more from that experience. I let go of a lot with that experience. And that, I think, is interesting to say. In this spiritual practice, it's not all about what value you can get, in the sense of like, wow, you can get $10,000 and you can get better relationships and you can get da-da-da-da. But like, what if it's just more so about you can let go of? You can let go of the excess laws that are holding you down. You can let go of any spiritual practice that you feel like you're supposed to be doing out of guilt. You can let go of this idea that we're going to reach some utopia anytime soon. The utopia is mentally like just whatever you could think. Or, like even it's kind of like that promised land sort of idea. you know, you can let go of the fact that you're going to gain 100% control of everything. But like, when you let go of those ideas, the experience that comes up is almost exactly what you're searching for. So you're looking for a sense of control, and you finally let go and be like, you know what, I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, here, you just flow me right into it. And then you realize that doing that was the only control you had, and then you lean right into more control, because like, you're like, all I have to do is whatever feels right to get me into the place of control. That might have been like a little bit whipping through, but in the morning time, when I'm maybe enhanced and high, I have a lot of concepts to contemplate. And when I notice even like a ping of my own shame, that like, oh, I can't believe I'm just like smoking weed in the morning and enjoying my life, even though I've been smoking weed for my whole life. You know, I start thinking like, would somebody take me seriously? Or blah, blah. I take myself seriously. That doesn't matter, right? Like, that is to remind you too, like, this is not whatever. But when that ping of shame kicked in, it really reminded me that that is hugely the lesson, that just in itself is part of the spiritual practice. So I work on trying to share truth in this space, and starting it off with just pure, authentic me, and realizing that the only somebody that I'm trying to reach is somebody that was just me a few years ago, or me right now, honestly. So it has to come out. It feels really good for the throat chakra, and it feels really good for just an energetic frequency. So I don't know if, I mean, I've sure learned about it, but if you yourself are learning things, and you're not really putting them into play or talking about them in a way that makes you feel like you're engaging with the information and the wisdom, I would encourage you, and just telling you this, like, this has been really scary to do, but it feels really good to get it out. And I hope that on the other side of somebody receiving this information, I would imagine that it's something that maybe you're looking for, and maybe I haven't really given you any actual concrete information yet, but hopefully just inspired you to know that just like, it's okay to be curious. It's okay to be curious about your own practice. The whole name of the game is curious for the rest of your life. So thank you so much for being in my space, and I welcome you back again next time.